So, as you may have seen in the last video, this is the component we're trying to make. It's just a spacer block. Nothing fancy, but the thing is, the original one was a plastic or some sort of Bakelite. Can't really say, but it deformed and cracked. They only had one, got two engines, so they needed one anyway. And it was just a case of using a suitable material to replace it. So the options we looked at were 3D printing one, casting one out of some sort of resin. I've got access to loads of different types of resin, and casting one from aluminium. So the first option was 3D printing. Well, I was worried that the temperature of the engine block was going to be enough to start deforming the plastic. Now, considering the original, which was made for the purpose, had already deformed, I figured that 3D printing was not going to be suitable. So that left us two options: casting in aluminium or casting in a resin. As such, I set about designing all three components really in the CAD. Designing the actual component we were going to make, and then I could use that to create the patterns for an aluminium casting or the mould for a resin casting. So you can see here I've taken the part and blanked off the components, so this would be an aluminium casting. Obviously making holes is doable, but small holes is just a hiding to nowhere really. It's just a pain in the arse. Whereas on the other hand, with resin you can pretty much make it out of the box ready to fit. So this is the resin moulding box, and to all intents and purposes it just looks like a mirror image of the component we need. The only difference is the tapers in the holes. As you can see, the two holes that were going to be for drilling once the final dimension was there could be put in place. Now these could be drilled out and moved slightly, as at the beginning we didn't have a true dimension of those holes. So with the casting option, as I explained before, went for a blind riser. In hindsight, I would have done it slightly differently, because I tried to make a securing platform to actually do the machining as well. I'm still not entirely sure even now how I would have tackled it slightly differently. The blind riser would have been made slightly differently, I think, because it would have made it easier to machine off. But holding the component while I machined it, I'm not so quite sure. I'll have some feedback on that. If anybody knows how that would have been best to hold that during machining, please let me know. But the blind riser is there purely and simply to feed the component, and because it's round shaped with a hollow centre, you have to try and feed as much of it as possible, so you feed the two larger ends. Now, I'm not here to teach you how to do CAD work, especially on something as simple as this, but as you can see, it's simply a set of circles that have all been made for the separate components that are required. Even the oval kind of shape that it goes to, I say oval, I'm not quite sure what shape you would actually call that, a diamond oval if you like, it's purely formed out of circles and 4 straight lines. Now the biggest problem you have to come across in designing for cast work is draft. Everything has to have a draft. Pulling straight edges is possible, but it's extremely difficult, time consuming, and generally leads to nothing but trouble. You need at least 3%. I try to put about a 5% taper on everything. You don't have to design the gates. Generally speaking, they can be done later on. And realistically, in CAD work, it's all about designing the component to do the job during casting. Thereon, it's down to the pattern making, whether you print it, make it out of wood, or whether you're sending it off to be pattern made. Either, I hope those little bits and pieces help if you're doing anything for casting work. Cheers, and I'll catch you again. Ta-da.